Welcome to PR Talk, sponsored by the PRSA of Oregon and part of the MPN, the Marketing Podcast Network. This is your host, Amy Rosenberg, founder of Veracity and author of A Modern Guide to Public Relations. Help other people find our podcast by subscribing, rating, giving us a review, or sharing on social media. Hi, everybody. I have Neil Foote here. Neil is the CEO of Foote Communications. He's the president of the National Black PR Society and associate dean of University of North Texas. Hi, Neil.
Hey, how are you? Great to be on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So I reached out to you because I saw something you wrote in a PR predictions blog post for Muck Rack, where you said that a lot of DEI activity occurred right after George Floyd, but it has dramatically dropped, and we've really only seen minimal gains. And actually, you said that this is the year for a renewed effort for PR executives to advocate for DEI. So I just want to know, if we can just talk about all that. There's a lot there, so I'm sure we can unpack all that.
No, absolutely. Thanks for reading that piece and allowing me to have a chance to discuss it. I think, what happened in, certainly after George Floyd's death, and now we have the tragic death of Tyre Nichols, is that there was a great corporate response certainly at that time of what should we be doing as companies. Particularly, our focus overall it was what should we do as companies, and then the industry itself really felt a great need to kind of respond. So what we saw was some wonderful comments by corporate leaders and CEOs. In some cases, yes, some real move to change, whether that was specifically promotions of key individuals to chief diversity officers, perhaps to vice president or division heads. But overall, as you still look at the data, and which is something I've been passionate about for much of my career, is that the numbers have barely moved the needle in terms of the number of diverse individuals, not only in the PR industry, the number of diverse individuals at senior level management positions, not only at the VP level, but at the C-suite level, no less at the chairman level. So we've got lots of work to do.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And so what is the PR person's role in all of that work, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about it, public relations, and it's evolving, right, as the industry and the economy and digital media changes the landscape. But public relations professionals are right at the heart of shaping messages, of shaping images, and potentially can provide a voice to individuals, brands, and organizations on their view of the world, on their view of current circumstances, on what products, programs, and services they serve. So I think what's critical for many folks in the PR industry today, which again many folks are dedicated to this effort, the folks at the Diversity Action Alliance, certainly my colleagues with the National Black Public Relations Society, we're dedicated to several key things. Is how do we make sure that DEI is seen as an equivalent and a direct impact on ROI, return on investment. So diversity, equity, and inclusion equals return on an investment. And what that means is that there has to be a conscious effort of not only recruiting, retaining, and promoting diverse individuals. It's creating a pipeline and a network, a sort of ecosystem, so that there can be change not only immediately, but certainly in the years ahead.
Mm-hmm. So a lot to talk about there. So first of all, you mentioned the ROI of DEI, which that's interesting because and I don't really want to talk about PR too much, but because I do want to talk mostly about DEI, but PR people sometimes can't even prove the ROI of PR. So how do we do all of this? And do you think because PR people are so focused on trying to solve that problem of ROI of our skills that maybe we are poised to look into the issue of proving ROI with DEI?
No, great question. I think, that has always been the conversation about how do we prove success? How do we measure the efforts that we may take that may include hours and hours of pitching and writing and prepping and working with media folks, preparing executives to do interviews. Um, but I think what we've seen is that we live in a world where analytics and data are so fully available. So we now have a myriad of data that now can help inform us about how successful our messaging is reaching, how many people they reach, how many people are clicking on our messages, how we can track keywords to actually change how search results may better impact the visibility of our public relations efforts. So if you translate that to diversity, equity, and inclusion, there have always been, and continues to be key metrics that boil down to, how many, if you break it down to, very fundamentally from a DI perspective, how many openings does any given organization have at any given time? What is the recruiting practice and the hiring practice of that organization to find, talented and excellent candidates for that? What efforts are being made to make sure that those job postings are shared with diverse groups, whether that's those within the industry itself or other professionals, students, and others who may be interested in those jobs? How successful are those efforts in reaching out and creating more diverse pools? Are there any opportunities potentially to measure the number of applicants within a certain pool of applicants? The NFL did this with the Rooney Rule of requiring all searches for head coaches to include diverse applicants. Now we can get into kind of how DEI, must be measured as a pure, sincere effort to hire the best possible candidates for the best possible jobs at any given time. And that's what the emphasis of DEI has to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. So this is where with PR, some people think of PR just in this one small function, right? Which typically is media relations, but then we know it's not. We know it's also internal comms and this and that, right? But I kind of struggle. So as let's just say a white woman working in PR, I don't mind getting in with HR and kind of like, looking at things and telling, giving my opinion and this and that. But sometimes with PR people trying to get in with DEI, I think it's important for lots of reasons, but sometimes you want to tread the line carefully of not actually doing DEI when you're not qualified to do so. We're PR people. So how do we work with essentially DEI professionals or departments while staying in our lane, essentially?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's an interesting point that you make because let me address it from a couple of different points of view. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is everyone's responsibility at an organization, regardless of color of skin or ethnicity or background. And I think sometimes, and some of the frustration for this issue, is the thin line that says, well, companies who decide, it's time that we get committed to DEI, then appoint a diverse person to lead up the diversity efforts with no budget, no additional staff, no real impact and responsibility, when in fact the charge of the company, which has to come from the senior leadership of the company, has to empower everyone at the company and help them understand that whether you're a white woman, a white male, Hispanic male, Black male, Asian man, South Asian, that you actually can contribute to this effort to diversify your organization. So part of it says, and I'll use this in an example of how I've seen it play out, is that the companies that have had the most success have actually reached out to their employees to identify folks within their own networks to which happens all the time, right? And maybe I'll back up, right? The good old boys network is a question of someone picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, Bobby, got a job opening. You should apply for it, and I'll make sure you get the job." Well,
Mm-hmm.
this still applies now. The opportunity then says, well, think about your network, think about the diverse people within your network. And if there aren't any diverse people in your network, what are well, again, regardless of my gender or racial background, what are those organizations that I can reach out to that then can foster the conversation that says, hey, look, my company is really bad at what we're doing right now in terms of hiring more diverse individuals. We are constantly looking for talent. Can you help me, or can you refer to me someone else who might be interested in working with us, or directing me and introducing me to young professionals or experienced professionals or senior professionals who may not be ready to work for my company today, but I want to at least build that relationship and let them know that our company is really interested in finding those kinds of individuals. So, the key point is senior leadership needs to make sure that everyone feels like it's their responsibility to create a better company, a better corporate culture, a more diverse corporate culture, new hires coming into the marketplace, whether that's Gen Z or particularly are looking for more diverse cultures and comfort and cultures, particularly corporate cultures where they feel comfortable and accepted and see themselves in the marketplace, in the offices, in the meetings, whether that's on Zoom or in person. So this is really becoming, direct, the impact of diversity, equity, inclusion on hiring patterns has become an increasingly conscious effort of folks looking for jobs, everyone at the company feeling responsible and that they can do and contribute in some way or the other. And that at the end, if we all do this, then the company looking down the road and all the economic and demographic trends that show the increasing diversity of the country are going to help our company become that much more successful in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it is something that everybody should work on together. And then possibly PR's role is to help. So essentially, if you have a DEI group and you're in PR, you can help your DEI group with their goals, which essentially, if you look at it like, oh, you have a sales department and you meet with them and help them with their sales goals, we can look at it that way. And so there's that. But then what about the difference between internal and external communications when it comes to DEI? Because I would think there's some internal work that needs to be done to galvanize people to look outside of their own little neighborhood or boxes, for recruiting. But then, and that's possibly internal, but what do we do on the external side? You mentioned recruiting a lot, which is wonderful, and showing representation, which is really good to think about. But sometimes, I don't know why, but my mind always goes to the organizations that are doing great things, but don't want to talk about it publicly, because I don't know why. A lot of organizations don't want to talk publicly. What would you say to them?
No, in fact, we're seeing a little bit of a backlash and a little bit of a diversity fatigue where people are like, oh, this issue keeps on coming up. Why are we being bothered by having to address this issue? Well, I'm going to go back to the point that I previously made that says, if in fact we want to have our companies succeed in the future, well, yes, okay, some might say, well, we've been successful so far without diversity. How's diversity going to make us more successful? Well, let me put it this way. Let me put it from a customer standpoint, that our potential clients in the industry, if again, talking about PR, increasingly more clients are going to be looking at companies that actually reflect greater diversity, both on the gender and racial side, because basically they realize their customer base now is more diverse than ever. So I go back to the fundamental ROI standpoint, and I used to talk about this when I was a journalist and used to do a lot of diversity stuff in the newspaper industry. And my challenge to those editors who would say, "Oh, Neil, this is not really a priority. You trying to say we're trying to why do we have to to do this. I'm saying, I'm sorry, if there are customers, if there's audience, if there are consumers, if there's potential clients that you are ignoring because you don't want to embrace diversity, or because potentially having diverse individuals on your team could attract more clients? Are you saying you want to leave money on the table? Are you saying that this is such a dumb issue that you don't want your company to make more money than it's making now? Are you saying you want to ignore markets that potentially have millions, if not billions, of dollars of consumer power? Do you want to say that your company itself that is going to be isolated in a land in itself, in a world when turn on the TV, watch a streaming show, watch a commercial? Um, diversity is all around us. It's everywhere. So why shouldn't our company reflect the world around us? Why shouldn't our company, even if we live in non-diverse communities, why shouldn't our companies capture the sense of how our world is changing and how much more richer, how much more potential market share we could gain, how much more successful in creating cultures where people want to work at, be successful, grow, and contribute to the growth of the company. So, to me, for those who are on the outside of it, I think increasingly they need to kind of step in and look at the bigger picture, because it's much bigger than me, myself, and I, or me and my company. It's really looking at the marketplace within their communities, within their state, within the country itself.
Hmm. Yeah. And also speaking about outside, right? So outside sales, outside revenue coming inside. What about money that could be left on the table inside? And what I mean by that is the internal culture. So these companies might think, oh, everything's fine and we're doing well. Is that true? Because with this, quiet quitting culture, and people can't hire, or people are leaving fast, and then the money required to retrain. I mean, do you think any of that kind of negative internal culture in corporate America is also an effect of this non-focus on DEI right now?
Well, yeah, I think what we're seeing, and I think accelerated and more amplified due to COVID and the changing workforce, and how people are making more conscious decisions about their life work balance. I think what all of these point to, that are really tied to diversity, equity, inclusion, but also to how employees are feeling, is that and it really it falls on the shoulders of diverse folks, because the key and the kind of four key aspects of this, right? Access to opportunity, right? So, can I get a job at your company because I think I'm qualified? I think I'm good at what I do. I think I want to grow. I want to contribute. If I'm working at your company, how do I have the opportunity and the access to get promoted to the next level? So, are you willing to give me the feedback on a regular basis that tells me what I'm doing well, what I can become better at, and what I need to learn if I want to get and develop to take over that senior level position? And so, overall, Amy, I think that's a fundamental issue that companies are struggling with in a big time, because what is quiet quitting, right? People are quitting, and the surveys and the data, if you look at certainly some research that even Dale Carnegie has done, and Gallup has done, and McKinsey, and all of the major consulting firms, they say most people are quitting a boss. They're quitting a person, right? They're quitting the job because the
Interesting. Yeah.
person that they're working with they just feel like, geez, the person doesn't understand me. The person doesn't relate to me. The person hasn't given me the right feedback to grow and have access to other opportunities. And, add that to the fact that if I'm a diverse individual, probably 92% of the people I'm working with are not going to look like me. Even a higher percentage, probably 99%, are even in a leadership position. So the actual opportunity for me as a diverse individual to work for someone who else is diverse is even smaller than that. So, the idea of improving corporate culture, improving an environment where access, opportunity, feedback, and development are happening in this cycle really should become a broader mission of of every company. And if they do that well, then DEI fits so nicely in that, because then the policies, the practices, the development of culture become intuitive to creating a better place to work.
So earlier, in my recap of your part to the Muckrack blog, I had recapped that you said that a lot of companies made some promises around George Floyd, and now, well, what has happened? Like, what did they do? So, do you think that now some companies may be called out in their inaction over the past years, or have they been called out already?
Well, I think some have been called out, but I think given the state of the country, we're interesting. We're entering another interesting period where what I'm hoping is, in my point of my piece and prediction in 2023, is that companies will take those who made a direct statement and a commitment to change will look at that and hold themselves accountable to that change. Good executives hold themselves accountable to driving success with the goals they set out to be. That's just good business. That's good management. That's good leadership. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if those leaders and companies are going to say, well, we are they going to admit that they got caught up in the moment?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. They're going to say we thought it was a good idea, and then we're concerned now about a recession and an economic uncertainty. Well, Amy, as long as I've been working, which has been a long time, there's always some economic uncertainty. There's always some business challenge that a company faces that is going to impact how they operate. So those external factors are how good leaders figure out how to operate even better. They lean into, in this case, their commitment to change. And they figure out, well, what we stated then, what have we accomplished now? What can we accomplish in the future? What do we need to, fix, adapt, change? Which, I want to be clear on what I said, that good plans, good strategic plans should always be updated and analyzed and reviewed given the circumstances that are going on in any given period of time. That's a good plan. Doesn't mean you have to abandon those plans, because my point is that DEI becomes an essential business practice and not a one-off and not a nice to have, but a critical business, a critical component of an operational business plan, not a one-off, but part of our strategy, part of our plan, part of our hiring, part of our marketing, part of our hiring, retaining and developing individuals, developing market share, and being more profitable. That's where this commitment to change. The companies that are serious about it are going to hold themselves accountable, reassess the plan, figure out what they can do to improve upon it, and hopefully lean into the effort and inspire others to do more as well.
So PR people could act like leaders and hold their companies accountable. So
Absolutely.
Because if you, as a PR person, you would know what was said, whether it's internal or external, look at that, examine that, see where we are, and then ask what's happening. And that's just like the first step, possibly.
Yeah, and think of it, as PR professionals, our job and working with our clients, we do this all day long, right? We do a debriefing with them. We do a communications audit, a messaging audit. We advise them on how best to frame their stories, what stories they should be going forth with. We advise them during crisis on what they should say and what they shouldn't say. So that's kind of the same practice, we need to use as internally to assess our successes, particularly when it comes to overall PR efforts, but also particularly when it comes to DEI. That if we see if each of us sees ourselves as empowered to drive change, then whether it's our small pod, our small team, our division, no less the whole company, how can you use that? How can you, some companies have created employee resource groups that are cross-functional, diverse groups of executives and team members who regularly get together and talk about business issues, issues that may impact day-to-day business. Other groups have created affinity groups that are tied to ethnicity or gender issues. So those are other ways that internally, to your point, Amy, can be done that say, how do we foster this conversation, within the team on a regular basis, and not just wait for something tragic to happen for us to take action and do things. But how can we have this conversation on a regular basis, get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, and then use and channel our energy from being uncomfortable to actually doing something that makes our company a better place.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then makes the world a better place. So let me just end by asking you about the National Black PR Society, because you are the president of that. So can you tell us about that and how people can check it out?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the National Black Public Relations Society is roughly about 24 years old. So we were founded by Pat Tobin, a wonderfully talented publicist who died several years ago. And what we've done with NBPRS, commonly known as Beepers, is really create a forum for professionals, public relations professionals, to come together to network, to share the community, to provide job opportunities, to show, serve as a town square for the industry to potentially engage and build relationships with PR professionals. What we've done with the organization is actually we're at nbprs.org. We're going through a really fun reorganization where myself, the past presidents, Rochelle Payne and Deborah Hyman and Winona Redmond, we're all working together to kind of re-energize the organization, focused on opportunity and access to jobs, promoting the expertise within our membership itself, so that the industry itself can see the wide range of talent and expertise that we have available. So we're looking forward to a very exciting 2023 with this new effort and new branding and launching forward in a big way.
Okay, great. We'll keep our eye out on that. And I'll include the info in the show notes for the website for that. And anyway, well, thank you for joining us today. This is an important issue, and it's good to start fresh, or look at what we've done and what we've said we would do in the past, see where we are. And people might be doing their PR plans right now. So now's the time to check out how you can incorporate DEI in it if it's not already there. So thank you.
Well, appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, Amy, and your audience, and looking forward to chatting more about this issue, and welcome to have this conversation. You could always follow me on social at FooteCom, FOOTECOMM, and certainly you can catch up with me via social and via email as well. So looking forward to hearing from you all and continuing this conversation down the road.
Wonderful. Thank you for all the great work you're doing.
Thanks for listening. For more PR insight, be sure to check out Amy's book, A Modern Guide to Public Relations, at prtalk.co. Also, please subscribe, rate, or leave us a review.